Alright, so we're getting back to Kabuto in this one, and yeah, so starting with episode 6, and this is going to be up until episode 10, like the uh, Agito one right before this. So, yeah, so we pick up from the last episode where Soji was being cornered by all of the Zect people, and so he's taken to uh, a nearby building or their headquarters, something like that, where he starts being interrogated by Yuzuki, and he's really not offering any answers to her questions. Every question she gives him, mainly like where did he get the belt, and if he is Kabuto, I think. Whatever the other question was, I can't remember. Um, he says, "Are you kidding? Would you not, or would you seriously ask the sun? Are you the sun?" Um, and it's just like, bro, like I get not answering her questions in a satisfactory manner, but like, jeez, dude, tone down the ego. Christ. So yeah. Um so then I should also say that um he told Arata to go to Tokyo Tower basically just to meet up with Hiyori and everything. And I assume because like he probably assumes that might save the knife for Hiyori or something, but Hiyori was specifically waiting for him, so that doesn't really check out. And Arata, unfortunately, even though he's offering answers to her questions of what happened to Soji, for the most part, he doesn't quite say what exactly happened to him, but he does say that he got detained and that wasn't his fault and everything. Um, and that he wasn't a liar and he did want to show up to their dates basically, but just wasn't or just couldn't because of that. And but she doesn't believe him, and she goes on believing that she got stood up by him. So yeah. Um, so um, should also say she waited like apparently like I think all night or something like that, or maybe a decent amount of the night because when Arata gets to Tokyo Tower, she apparently had been like or she I think she was waking up from or had just woken up from taking a nap or something like that because like you can see that she was like very like, and this went with what happened in the previous episode, she was just very stunned and taken aback by her agoraphobia, and she told the security guard that she just needed a quick rest to get better from what she was feeling and everything, and seems like she did. And uh, good for her and everything. But yeah, so then the next day she goes to Soji's house, um, and the only person that's there is his sister. So she comes in, and yeah. Meanwhile, at the same time, Soji asks for his one phone call and everything. So yeah, and even though um, Yuzuki is not wanting to, I think, give him the phone call, he manages to kick the desk in front of him enough to make his phone pop up and get into his hand, to which he dials, obviously, his home phone number, and then has her hold the phone up to his ear because he's in cuffs and everything, and his hands are behind his back, so can't really move him. So then, yeah, when it's at his house, or when it cuts to his house, his sister picks up the phone. Um, he tells her that he got held up helping a friend with something, which isn't really that which isn't technically wrong, but it's not. It's leaving out a bunch of details. Obviously, he's threatened by uh, Yuzuki to not say anything over the phone about his current situation and everything. So there's that. But he phrases it in a way that like isn't necessarily lying. But yeah. So then his sister tells him that Hiyori is there, and I keep having to check the wiki because I keep forgetting the goddamn names. But anyways, not that I want to forget. It's just that they haven't burned themselves into my mind for the most part. But so she puts Hiyori on. He apologizes for not showing up, but also it's not really his fault because of what happened. I think she tells him that Arata, or maybe not. But I do love his reaction to her reaction to what he says, and I believe she calls him out for standing her up, and then she hangs up the phone, and he's just left stunned. He is just left stunned that he couldn't like charm or talk his way out of her being mad at him. It's hilarious. I love that whenever they like take his ego and throw it back in his face. It's just hilarious to me. Like he genuinely expected to be able to charm his way out of that, but it didn't work. You know, it's stupid of him to expect it, but then also just like it has the best result in it, and I like that when an egotist is taken down a peg in regards to thinking that everything or that they can get out of everything that they're doing, and that's how you should write a character like that. By the way, too many shows miss that for some reason, and I don't understand why. But yeah, so then he asks, why am I Yuzuki for basically, I think it's no, not udon, but like whatever type of food it is bowl, which is funny. It's funny that both this and Agito are being subtitled and released on Toei's YouTube channel for tokusatsu stuff at the same time, because I literally just watched the episode of Agito where Shoichi gets brought into the uh, the police headquarters because they think he might have killed someone, um, and they also bring him food, but under different circumstances, and he doesn't ask them for it and everything. On top of that, he's being treated differently because they don't know, for one, he's Agito, and two, they don't know he killed the chick or not. So, yeah, he didn't, by the way. Go watch that podcast episode, but it for more details on that. But basically, it's just funny to have the same scenario in two different contexts, very different. Um, whereas I think Agito played a little bit more, um, maybe realistic and whatever. You have different characters doing different things, and it's just funny to see how they are interacting with each other in these settings. So yeah, I just find that funny. Um, so then uh, they get him the food. He eats it. He tries to ask Yuzuki about I think their headquarters or something like that. But she obviously refuses to answer the question because she's the one supposed to be asking questions. But yeah. So then uh, he he gets done with his food and says thank you for it, and then yeah. So with that, we go to, I think it's back to his house. This happens at some point, so I'll just talk about it now. He asked Hiyori to make his sister some food over the phone as well, and because it's how he and his sister do their meals on Sunday or on Sundays, and he asks her to make a specific type of food, so she does. She hangs out with his sister for a bit, and she talks to her about that, or about him and everything, the fact that he's not around at the moment. But his sister has a different view on it, saying that, like, even though he's not physically there, basically he's still around in her heart, which is something that the grandma like said as one of her, I guess, proverbs, is what I'm assuming is what these things are. So yeah, and Hiyori starts thinking about that. So yeah, and I'll talk about that in a second. I just remembered something else from the phone conversation that I'll talk about a little later. So then we have Arata sneaking up to the front door of the building that they're in, distracting one of the guards and having the guy give him his Zect suit. So he sneaks in and everything, but what should happen but a worm attack? And yeah, so we get a bunch of the guards going downstairs to there, and then when Arata gets to near the top of the stairs, he's cornered by someone in another Zect military cost or military like outfit, but it turns out to be Soji. I was kind of expecting them to answer how exactly he got one of the guard outfits. But no, we just don't get that explanation at all. They don't show it, even in a flashback, which I was kind of wanting them to do, or assuming that they would. But yeah. And yeah, so yeah, they meet up, so they both meet up, and to show each other their faces and everything. And then we get Yuzuki being taken away by, or going with her two superiors in the van to track down the worms and everything. Basically, every Zect soldier there is dead, and Soji reveals to Arata that the two higher ups that Yuzuki is working with were killed by the worms and impersonated by them. So she is clearly in danger of that. So Arata calls her and warns her about the fact that the two guys that are with her are worms, and that she needs to get the belt and get out of the van and everything, and someone will meet up with her. But unfortunately, the worms hear the phone conversation because their hearing is much better than a human's. But unfortunately, there's a distraction with some shots being fired on the van, so it starts swerving a bit. So then she grabs the belt and I'm trying to remember what kind of roll it is, but like basically just jumps out of the van and does maybe an army roll or something like that. Combat roll, something like that. Out of the van to make sure that she's not hurt. And then Soji was the one that was following and shooting upon them and everything, and he stops and talks with her a bit. She then trusts him with the Kabuto belt because they took it from him when they arrested him, and says that she's trusting him to take them down and everything with the Kabuto powers. So yeah, so then he goes to, or he heads them off somehow. I guess the motorcycle would be, or would able to be, or go faster than the van. But yeah, he heads them off at a pier and transforms into Kabuto. They transform back into their monster forms before he does that, and they fight. He gets rid of one of them as well as some of their goons, I believe, and he gets rid of them in the more bulky form. And then when the other one goes fast, he goes into the Kabuto. I think isn't it like speed form? He casts it off and turns into the speed form basically. Then does clock up and fights it. And I actually kind of like how they do this fight because it takes place basically on a barge. near the the pier where they're at and everything as it's going by. He clocks up, they go faster onto it. There, it's frozen um, until he powers up his rider kick, and I do like his rider kick, by the way. Most of the time, at the very least, I think he's done one where he's jumped up in the air and did it, but most of the time when he does the rider kick, it's a roundhouse kick, and I do like that. I also think of the Family Guy clip for Roadhouse when Peter does the roundhouse kick with that, imitating Patrick Swayze from Roadhouse, and I can't get that out of my mind every time I see it. It's just funny. So so yeah, and after that, when time's up for the super speed, he's gotten rid of the worm, and he does his signature pose after that. And so Yuzuki tells Arata after he asks if she's still going to tell HQ about what just happened. She says, yes, but I'll tell them that the guy we arrested isn't Kabuto. And yeah. So then we see Hiyori walking home. She is almost to her place, and she sees a it's nighttime, and she I'm assuming that she went there after work, or she went back to her place after work. She finds a note in her, I'm assuming it's her bike, the little basket in front of the bike, and it's the kanji for 10, I believe, the number 10. And then on Tokyo Tower, where she can see it, there's like, I'm assuming it's a hologram of or maybe not a hologram, a projection actually of what Soji promised, which I should say the reason why it's 10 is because his last name is Tendo, and basically he promised her over the phone to show her a one of a kind tulip, and with the projection onto Tokyo Tower, which I think is CG in the actual shot. Too bad it's like really low resolution because of how they rendered it, but yeah. It's a projection of a tulip and everything. So he kept his word on that. And yeah. So then we leave off the episode by seeing some of the higher-ups from Zect talking about their, I guess, next phase of their plan, to which we see someone in a very Kamen Rider-looking outfit who is, I guess, working for Zect because he has their logo on his belt and everything, and I assume this is going to be the next challenge for Soji and everything. So yeah, so I honestly did really like this episode. For the most part, it's still the kind of the egotism with Soji and everything, and how the show seems to treat his egotism, even though they do give him a bit of comeuppance for some things. The show more treats his egotism as, oh, that kind of like thing, which can get annoying. And the fact that he does have a little bit of comeuppance doesn't save the fact that somehow he was able to rig the tulip thing, as well as kind of, I guess, charm his way into Yuzuki's heart to a degree, as well as make it up to Hiyori. I don't know. I would think that the better way to go about it would be Arata meeting up with Hiyori and them enjoying the exhibit that she was going to see with Soji and everything, and have that be the thing. I kind of assumed that that's where they were going to go when they had Soji tell Arata to go to Tokyo Tower, because I think that was also probably maybe what he was thinking was going to happen. If not, maybe Arata just explaining what happened. But yeah. Hiyori, in terms of a character, I think she's fine. It's like I said, I don't hate her. I actually kind of like her. It's just her personality is a little bit standoffish, and her agoraphobia is an interesting way to take a character like this. I don't know. I haven't really seen much of that like portrayed in a lot of media, so it's very interesting. Um, so yeah, and Arata in this episode is very interesting. I will say though, Soji, I think he has a decent amount of like street smarts in regards to how to treat these situations because um when the higher up that's working with Yuzuki, I don't know his name and I don't care. Because like he's literally just in I think the last episode, maybe the last two, and this one, and he's killed and disposed of, so I don't care. Um, he uh he accuses Arata being friends with Soji, but then Soji says that they're not friends and everything to get Arata off the hook and everything. Um, and uh, so he can go, so he can be, yeah, he can be let off the hook and go, and then what is the other thing? He uh, he can also uh, go to Tokyo Tower and explain things to Hiyori and everything. It also makes sense to me that his sister would give Soji more the benefit of the doubt because like she knows him, she's lived with him for years, so makes sense. Um, but I also the episode also just kind of seems to be like kind of gaslighting Hiyori into forgiving Soji. Um, Granted, we know that she should forgive him, but at the same time, like I don't know. But granted, it's also not necessarily that easy for him to be forgiven by her because he has to actually make it up to her. It's just a weird thing in terms of all of that to me at the very least. Um so yeah. There's also the fact that a couple things are just missing from the episode that I don't know if they shot or were in the script when they were shooting the episode, but the fact that Soji just randomly is able to get one of the guards' outfits, I think that's just a little weird, just off screen. They have that happen. Not to say it can't be a reveal or anything, but like it feels like there's like a few seconds of the guards being alerted to the worms attacking and maybe Soji looking at one of them that's being left behind to watch him so he doesn't escape. Um, um, and maybe him just like looking at the guard and everything and then cutting away to what's going on. I think we're missing a shot like that that would have maybe telegraphed it a bit, but also made it make a little bit more sense. I don't know. It's not to say that it's illogical for him to have done that. I think it's just not set up at all. And it should have been. So, yeah. So I don't think I have much else to say on this episode. Um, I am looking forward to what happens next. So we'll see. But yeah. So, guys, moving on to episode 7. All right, so episode 7. Very interesting one we got here in terms of the development of this series. So, it deals with a new person being, which was in the stinger of not even the stinger, the last bit of the last episode, a new Kamen Rider being added to the series. Kamen Rider the Bee, or just the Bee, which I don't know why, but they stylize it as the Bee, like one word. But yeah, basically a Kamen Rider based on a mix of a bee and a wasp. In his armored form, he just looks like a bee, like more of a bumblebee, whereas in his cast off form, he resembles more of a wasp. Makes sense. Except he doesn't have a rider belt or anything, and he doesn't connect his um, animal thing or bug thing to it. Instead, he has a wrist, I think a wristwatch of some kind or a wrist mount that he uses for it. And yeah, so very different from Kabuto. On top of that, we get introduced to the character for him, So Yagaruma. Yagaruma? Yagaruma? I'm trying to figure out how to pronounce that. Um, and he is introduced as the new leader of I think, the shadow part of Zect. And um, we can see he's actually a pretty effective leader. And uh, in the opening, he gets where he leads against a worm attack and leads his own like army and everything of troops. And he, I believe they managed to take down the worm that they're fighting. But yeah, and we got sorry, I can't remember fucking names for the life of me. Arata being in awe of him a bit and asking for some advice on how to fight the worms. And so then says that they need to figure out where the worms come from, I believe, and when they do that, they can then learn where they're going to attack from. I think is that. And uh, so yeah, and then Arata takes that as advice, which that's not really advice. That's more just a plan of attack, um, or a mission statement. So yeah, so basically, he then goes on to want to order some tofu from this merchant, for him to make tofu for him and um, I think one other person in his squad or something like that. Meanwhile, Soji also wants the tofu to make for him and his sister because he made plans with his sister, asking her, I think, what she'd want for dinner, and she said something with tofu. I think it's like hot tofu or something, and then he wanted like cold tofu, and they both make fun of each other for being like an old person. Um, so yeah. Um, so they, in order to get the tofu, because the guy only has one left, they have a cook-off at um, I don't know why I can't remember names for the life of me. Hiyori's job, or at Hiyori's job, and they end up making two different kinds of dishes. I think Soji makes Chinese styled tofu, and then So makes, I can't remember what type of tofu, but a different type of tofu that I think a friend of mine had, or maybe it's So that makes the Chinese style. Now that I think about it, so my friend and I were at a Chinese restaurant actually in Chinatown in Tokyo, and the last time we went to Japan, and he ordered a very similar dish to that, although his dish was more spicy than I'm assuming that one is, because I'm assuming that's probably his probably had more of a mild to medium spice, whereas the spice my friend had was definitely very, very spicy. And I'm not sure what Soji made, but yeah. So Hiyori tries both of them, and she says she prefers the one that So made, and so then Soji's in disbelief and everything, and yeah, So says he believes in balanced harmony or perfect harmony to achieve a balance with making the food, and that goes against Soji's thing where he wants all the flavors to stand out on their own, so he makes them in different increments, I guess, or adds them in different increments. So yeah, so I guess more or some stand out more than others. It's one of those things. Um, so yeah, so said he would split the tofu with Soji, but Soji wanted it all because his grandma said something that basically means just have it all, um, or don't half-ass it or something like that. So, yeah, so takes it to make his meal and everything. So, yeah, the kind of brat that Soji can be because of his ego is hilarious. I'm not gonna lie. So then, uh, there then is another worm attack on a couple who are about to get married. They're in a church and everything, and the worm impersonates the guy's uh, fiance and turns into a copy of him, then kills him. And yeah, so Zect um is like dispatched to go defeat it. I also should say before this, Arata tells Soji to stay out of the business with Zect and everything, basically warning him about what maybe is going to happen because Zect has a new member, a new Kamen Rider and everything. And Soji assumes that it's that guy, but Arata doesn't say anything. He says it's classified. And yeah, but that doesn't deter Soji. So he shows up when Arata and is it, I'm sorry, I can't fucking remember names for the life of me. Yuzuki. Um, they pose as a couple about to get married, but before they can, and Soji shows up, waiting for the worm and everything. But before they can actually pose as a married or about to be married couple, that gets interrupted when another woman who I think is about to get married or something like that gets attacked by a worm, and they then deduce that it's not people who are getting married that the worm is targeting, but people wearing white. So yeah, so it tries to attack Soji outside, and Soji says, I figured that's what you were doing, attacking people in white instead. No idea how the fuck he came to that conclusion, and granted, really no idea how the fuck the other people came to that conclusion, realistically, but okay. Um, at the very least, though, I could believe it from their perspective rather than Soji's, but whatever. Um, so yeah, so he starts fighting it, then transforms into Kabuto. We then see another monster attack or another worm attack as well, and we get So transforming into the bee and um and everything. And yeah, so they all start fighting. I think So transforms into his cast off form quicker and everything, and dispatches of that worm. Meanwhile, Soji still fights his for a little bit longer in his armored up form, but then does cast off and then starts to do the clock up and everything. Um, and then when the worm gets to where the Zect troops are, So immediately tells Soji that they should go into their clocked up modes and defeat the worm in that. And while Soji starts to fight it, So takes up the fight and defeats the worm in his clocked up form and everything. Then he offers Soji, which Soji does then reveal that he is Kabuto. I don't really fucking know why, considering the last episode, or the last two episodes when he was caught and almost basically being kept prisoner by Zect. Like, dude, come on, bro. Like, and after I gave him points last episode for being a bit street smart, it's like, dude, the fuck. Because I would think that he's strong. He's like smarter than that, but then also his ego outweighs his smartness a lot, or at times. So I guess him acting stupid isn't out of character. It's just really frustrating. Anyways, so yeah, he basically makes fun of him for his perfect harmony stuff. Then So is just like, oh, it is you. You were Kabuto. And yeah, but so then he offers Soji to join Zect, but Soji doesn't want to, and he rejects it. So then he says he's going to have to take him in. and the Zect troops surround him and everything, and that's where the episode ends. So a much more simplistic episode than the last one. There's not a lot going, or there's not as much going on, but it is an introduction to a new character and everything. We establish everything that we need to know about him, and I actually like So. He honestly comes off like Soji, but without the giant ego. He's just as smart as Soji, I think, and he's just as capable with fighting, but he doesn't have the ego that Soji has. So he's a perfect foil, I think, for Soji in a few ways. Um, and he doesn't figure everything out of nowhere, but like Soji does at points, but um, you can tell that he's smart and he knows what he's talking about, and he has powers of deduction. We even had the higher up who's leading Arata, I don't know his name, and I'm not going to check, who gave him props for being the one to be promoted to the rank, or to be the B, and and he knew that he would probably be the one to be it. So we get some things played around with, and it's still funny that like I'm also watching Agito, that they're putting both of these series out at the same time on the Toei Tokusatsu World official YouTube channel, because there is a very similar thing in regards to what's going on with the police force and everything in that show. It's just played differently, and one of the characters isn't G3, and he's not really he's not a Kamen writer either. But they're still like police officers, and they have a bit of a rivalry and everything. But it's just played very differently. On top of that, it's not the main guy who is the egotistical dickhead, like, and everything. But yeah, again, it's nice to see Soji kind of being taken down a peg with So, which it's interesting that So literally has half of Soji's name. But yeah, or Soji's first name. But yeah, uh, but then yeah, it's just interesting to see Soji basically be a petty bitch and like this, and just be taken down a peg, and then like surrounded by weapons and everything. It's just funny. I find it funny. So yeah, and so I do like this episode in regards to what it does. Arata's a bit put in the background of everything. Like, he's not important, but he is there, and everything. The fact that it's a cook-off at Hiyori and Arata's workplace, in the kitchen where she works, so they can decide who gets the tofu, is kind of dumb, but at the same time, like, it's entertaining. I'll give it that. But yeah, oh yeah, and the reason why Hiyori picked So's tofu dish over Soji's is the fact that she prefers a hot dish rather than it legitimately, in her opinion, being better than Soji's dish. I like that. I do like that because it does show that Soji is a really good cook. It's just that everyone has different like tastes and preferences for their food. So for him to be taken down a peg by that, I think is hilarious. I think that's really funny. But yeah, I don't really have much else to say on this. I just can't wait to see what happens next. So on episode 8. All right, so we're on episode 8. Oh my god, this gave me a good laugh, part of this episode. So, something I did not mention towards the end of the last episode was the fact that Soji said to So that one of the worms got away. So doesn't believe him at first, but as some attacks keep mounting on different people around the city, Um, or maybe not around the city, but still at that, but also at that church still. Um, one of So's higher ups, or the higher up, I guess, at Zect, tells him that, well, Soji was right, although he doesn't know it's Soji yet. So is keeping that under wraps for now, and they're just referring to him as Kabuto. So, yeah. Um, so, we have Soji basically um, getting away from Zekt's troops and everything after So tries fighting him, and they or and what happens is yeah, he fights off the troops that try to come at him. He avoids their gunfire and everything, and he um I think indirectly a bit ends up hurting one of them. He doesn't try to fight back, is the thing. He's just more on the defensive and trying to avoid any fighting if he can. But yeah, so he ends up getting one of the troops hurt, and the guy gets or he ends up in the hospital and everything to recover. He doesn't seem too badly hurt, but he still needs to obviously see a doctor and everything. So yeah, so then So is going to make him some of the tofu that he made a couple days beforehand because the guy wants it. But when he goes to get the tofu from the vendor from the last episode, it turns out Soji bought all of it because he wants to throw a tofu party because his sister wanted to, I think, throw it, and she wanted Hiyori to um, come and attend, basically. And and yeah, uh, we get Arata changing um, parts or changing which part of the organization he works for to the one that So leads, and so when when he does that, he ends up shadowing So to learn from him, and yeah, so they go on an investigation of the for the church and everything to get the worm because they find through their analysis that it's um not these actually maybe the same. Yeah, I think it is probably the same worm from the last episode that was transforming into people, or one of them at the very least. And yeah, and it keeps doing it. So yeah, it kills a few more people, including I think a kid, because they don't show the kid on screen, but they have the kid talking off screen and hyping up his aunt because the kid says she looks pretty and everything in her outfit and makeup and hair and everything for I guess the wedding that they're attending. And that's when at least the aunt gets killed, but there's nothing saying the kid doesn't also get killed. So yeah. Um, so we have Arata also telling Soji that he better not get involved in what they're doing anymore, or he really will tell. Or no, he won't let him get away with it, basically. So yeah, because Arata kind of hates Soji. I'm not surprised because Soji's kind of a dick, but like, or not even just kind of, he is a dick, but yeah. Um, but Soji then has Hiyori when he is helping, or he's having her help him carry the tofu home because he's kind of a dick, but also he is inviting her to the tofu party that he and his sister are gonna throw. But yeah, he has her bring the tofu back to her restaurant until he can get it. And he manages to get into the church and disguises himself as a pastor. In one of the most over-the-top sequences I think that's been in this show so far, and I just laughed at that because that is so over the top ridiculous that it's hilarious for Soji. Like, I think they executed it well. I think it was supposed to be comical in its intent and its execution, and it was great. You have Soji also reciting Bible passages. um, while there's a couple getting married and everything. It was just like, this man is fucking ridiculous. And I'm not gonna lie, I kind of appreciate the ridiculousness of this dude. So, yeah. So then when he notices one of the choirs, or one of the people in the choir that are singing is out of sync, basically making fun of So's perfect harmony thing in the process, just basically throwing shit his way when he doesn't deserve it, realistically. He transforms into Kabuto and quickly dispatches the monster, which I'm wondering if they shot or a longer fight sequence with this, but didn't want it to be too long in the final edit because of everything else that's in the episode. But after that, So gets so fucking pissed at Soji that he goes to the restaurant where Soji is, and even though Soji was gonna give him one of the tofu to make for his subordinate, because like Arata, I think told him he told him that So wanted it, and everything, and I guess Soji surmised that that's why. He So like bats it out of his hand and just challenges him to a fight, and they both transform into their Kamen Rider forms, cast off, and start fighting. And we leave off on a note of Arata catching up and yelling to them, and So charging up a Rider's Sting and charging in for, I think, the final blow is what he's doing. And yeah, so not a lot going on in this episode, especially compared to the last few, but this episode still has, it continues the plot from the last episode. It has its own things going on, I think, to continue the storyline and the characters and everything. And it's just entertaining with that part of Soji dressing as a fucking pastor. That shit's just hilarious. Or maybe a priest. Either way, I think it's a priest. Pastors, I think, are Catholic, right? But yeah, he's in full robes and everything. That's just hilarious. And I'm willing, yeah, I'm very much certain that that was the intent by the writers and the director, or writer and director. But yeah, yeah, when you can make an egotistical asshole, actually funny with how ridiculous they can be, I give you points there on the writing side. So yeah, but yeah, so another okay episode. I don't know. I don't know. I don't necessarily like Soji being proven right as much as he is. I think that he definitely needs to be taken down a peg in regards to how right he is about certain things. But yeah, the fact that he also managed to bypass So's security and just makes fun of him for it, he just shits on him for it, is just honestly hilarious. And the fact that, like, I guess after he proved his point, he calmed the fuck down and was just willing, or he was going to willingly give So one of the tofu to make the dish for his guy. You know, I guess that shows that Soji, he's not like, he's petty, but he doesn't overly hate you if he's petty against you. He just, he'll get over it as soon as he's proven his point, basically, is the kind of narcissism he has. But yeah, I appreciate the over-the-top ridiculousness of that. Played absolutely well. and everything. I think they understood the assignment and everything with that. And yeah, so guys, on to episode 9. All right, episode 9. So it's pretty packed with shit. Basically it starts off with um the last bit of the fight between Soji and So. So ends up winning because Soji gets partly distracted with saving um Arata? Yeah, Arata. Um from some falling debris from the nearby building by throwing his sword to take care of most of it, or the ones that are falling more so, just to break them up into smaller pieces. And so ends up uh, doing the Rider's Sting, which makes Soji de-transform, and then when he gets up, So punches him really hard in his rider belt, which seemingly breaks it, and Soji falls on the ground, seemingly dead. So yeah, and then So takes off, believing that he's defeated Kabuto, and yeah. Then Arata checks on Soji, and it turns out Soji uh, just played dead. He basically acted. He compares it to some animals going limp to and pretending to be dead to get out of danger, which I don't know, but whatever. And he gets up. Arata looks away for a second and sees the sword that Soji threw to break up the debris and everything. But then he sees Soji passed out on the ground and calls an ambulance, obviously. It's either that or takes him directly to the hospital. But either way, um, they're in the hospital. He also calls Soji's sister and, Hiyori, as they're waiting at the party for Soji to get back. But yeah, and so they're worried. They head to the hospital. But it turns out that Soji is just fine, and he's actually doing a checkup on the doctor that's tending to him rather than the other way around, which I assume they meant that to be funny, but like it comes off to me like just come the fuck on, man. Play something straight. Seriously. This could have been a point where Soji gets fucking humbled, but whatever. So yeah, so Arata basically scolds him for that, and then says something else, and then Soji says, uh, "You're always worrying too much about me." But then Soji's sister wants him to make sure that he's all right, so he says that he'll check himself in for the night just to satiate. I think he says his sister, but yeah. Um, and or maybe it's Arata. Um, I am trying to remember. I'm assuming it's Arata, but yeah. So then we go to the next day as So is checking up on his subordinate and everything. And well, during that hospital visit, he finds out that Soji is perfectly fine, and he, his sister, and uh, why can I not fucking remember names? Hiyori are serving soup and curry. Or maybe it is just curry. It looks like a soup more so than a curry, but I don't know. It's basically an Indian type of curry. I forget what kind of curry they said, but yeah. That they prepared the night before to all the people in the hospital, staff and patients included. And yeah, and I do like the subtle joke of the doctor from the previous scene waiting in the line to get some of the curry, and her saying, like, cheering on Soji's proverb. That was what I was thinking of. Proverb from his grandma saying, getting better means eating better. Um, so yeah. But then we see So get fucking pissed at this. But yeah. But then after that, Arata sees Yuzuki waiting in the line as well, disguised as a doctor. And so he asks if she was just checking on Soji and everything. But then she asks what's going on. She thought he said that So took out Kabuto. And so he brings her outside and he recaps what happened towards the end of the fight, where he tried to get them um, to stop fighting, and basically explains that Soji threw his sword towards Arata, and So took him out while he wasn't paying attention, um, or distracted by that, and um, and that's basically the thing that he and uh, Yuzuki come to as an assumption as to what happened, why Soji lost that fight. But then who comes out but So's subordinate, who is being kind of an idiot. I don't know why he's being like this, but he basically saw them walk off when he was heading back to his room with So, and he's thinking that Arata is undermining So in regards to what was going on and everything by talking to Yuzuki about it, which is just I find fucking stupid, but yeah, I don't know why it doesn't seem like he has any real reason to think that, but whatever. Especially since they barely know each other. But anyways, so quells whatever's going on, and he says that Kabuto can't even transform anymore, even if Soji's around. So yeah, because he took out his rider belt and everything. So yeah, so then we see Hiyori uh, accidentally tip over. I think it's Soji. I think it's either a backpack or a suitcase or something like that. I can't remember, or whatever. But she tips it over. I think it's Soji's, and it has his belt in it. She picks it up, and it has a bit of discharge, and she seemingly starts remembering something. But we don't know what. Arata comes in. He says it's his when she asks, and doesn't really explain what it is, except that it's important, and then takes off. He then goes with Soji down some stairs and talks about how the belt was how he can't transform into the Kabuto anymore because the belt's broken, but Soji points out that it's not. Then Arata says, does it have some sort of self-fixing function? And Soji's just like, I've had it for years, but I've never seen that. So yeah, so it's a bit of a head scratcher as to why it's fixed, but I guess that was the bit of dialogue to explain why it's fixed. It makes no sense as to why, because like Arata was gonna take it to Yuzuki to fix it, which I think would have probably been a little better in my opinion, but whatever. Um, but yeah, so you have that. So then more worms come in, which is where So went and everything, and his subordinate also followed him. So yeah, so then Arata, I think he tells Soji not to interfere again, or actually Morris says that if you're not gonna help out or work with us or whatever, go take a nap then, basically. And I just like Soji's response. He said this I think in either the last episode or 2 episodes ago as well, where he says he certainly is entertaining, and it's just like, yeah, um, it's just like you can just what Soji does is perfectly telegraphed every time as to what he's gonna do. So yeah, so during the battle, So turns into the bee and starts fighting During the fight, Soji shows up and transforms into Kabuto. He starts fighting the worms and their goons and everything, um, or foot soldiers or whatever. But then So interrupts and everything, wondering how he can still transform. Um, and yeah, so they begin fighting, and as a result of So's single-minded determinedness to take out Kabuto, Soji says he's lost or he stepped off the path that he set for himself or something like that. And the bee part of it, I'm trying to remember what it's exactly called. Um, Zebi Zector. There we go. Zebi Sector. Abandons him, and so he can't call it anymore, and so he can't transform into the bee. So yeah. So then he is crowded into a fight, or not a fight, basically a one-sided kind of beat down with the worms as Arata tries to fight off the worms that he is fighting, which is like I think two of them. He manages to kill one of them, but there's one or two more still there. Um, and as a result of his determinedness to um, do what he's doing and protect everybody, um, the Bezector flies to him instead. And since the wrist brace that, or the wrist mount, I guess, that So was using is on the ground, he grabs it, puts it on his wrist, and then uses the Zector to transform into Kamen Rider the Bee. And I gotta say, good on him. Good on him. Um, and yeah, and I can't say it's not like a bit of karma for So. I just hate that Soji is kind of put in the right for this shit as much as he is. But yeah, I mean, it's like they give him too many moments of, well, he's not wrong. He's actually pretty right about this. He's pretty right in his assessment about this. I don't know. I feel like I feel like more narcissistic characters should what is the word? Should um like be like treated more, maybe more realistically, or more, or like less like they're the fucking messiah, you know, just in my opinion. Anyways, so yeah, so that's where the episode leaves off with him transforming. And also, I forgot to mention this, Soji transforms his bike into what looks like a three-wheeler, um, with a stag horn, because, you know, Kabuto means stag beetle. So, yeah, makes sense. As he's chasing down two worms that are in a spider kind of form, I guess. And they I think he beats them. But yeah. But yeah, we're just left off on the note of Arata transforming into the bee. So, yeah, honestly, just good on him. Not a bad way to take the episode. Um, but yeah. So, yeah, in terms of the development for So, very interesting way to do it. Um, wouldn't think that they would do something like this quickly after introducing the second rider of the series, but this is otherwise not bad. I can't wait to see where they take this in the next episode. So yeah, so on to episode 10. All right, so we got episode 10, and yeah, the last one of this particular podcast episode. So we start off with So and Soji talking, and yeah, uh, after after Arata fends off the worms that he's fighting, and he manages to do the cast off and the clock up pretty well. He's still not really trained in how to fight, but it's not bad, honestly, with what he does. But yeah, so after that, we get So talking to Soji and admitting that he lost his way. So, yeah, he allowed his anger to build up and just have himself get off the path that he was on. So yeah, so then we he makes his dish from last episode for Soji, or no, it was 2 episodes ago for Soji, and Soji says it's good, but it's different from the last time he made it because Soji tried it too, and So said I try that he try. He says that he tried separating the flavors or making them stand out from one another, like Soji does. He says it's an interesting uh, way of going about it, and Soji tells him to make. He gives him another thing of tofu and tells him to make the dish the way only he can, basically. Um, so yeah, so it's basically kind of like I do like that exchange because it's a way of conveying to the audience that So is trying a different way or thinking about a different way of going about things, and then Soji tells him that he doesn't need to, and that his way was working for him until he went off his own path and everything, or went off the path he set for himself. So yeah, so we have that, and I think that that is a pretty good exchange, honestly. Um, so yeah, so then we get Arata. He's talking to the subordinate from the previous episode. I am trying to remember his name. I think Shun Kageyama, I believe, is the character, and Shun tells him that because he is the new user of the B Zector, he is being made the new leader of the Zect Shadow Troopers. And he's like, really? I was just in training the other day. And it's just like, yeah, I don't really. I don't know. I was kind of figuring that after that, there would be maybe a little bit of a training sequence. Showing him like learning how to fight and everything, but no, not none of that. Shame on you, I guess. Instead, what they chose to do was they show him picking up ingredients and whatever from a local supermarket, and he calls Soji, telling him that he's gonna have a party at the restaurant, and he tells why can I not remember fucking names for the life of me? Hiyori. He tells him to tell Hiyori about that as well. And Soji asks what the party is for, and he says that he'll tell him later. So yeah. So then he gets a call from a higher up, and he says, or the higher up tells him that as Zabi, his mission is to defeat Kabuto. So yeah, which could not have been a surprise to him. I don't know why it is, because that wasn't just the directive of So. It was literally what he was told to do by the higher ups. I don't know. And it can't be, yeah, and it just can't be any surprise to him, because even though he wasn't privy to that exactly, it's also just like Zect doesn't want anyone using the Kamen Rider technology or the Master Rider Project technology. It's funny because they call it the Master Rider Project in English, so, or maybe just Master Rider and then whatever the Japanese word for project is. But yeah, and yeah, they don't want them using their technology at all. So yeah, I'd actually love to see if they did any at the time, at the very least, if they were to have done a versus movie of the previous Kamen Rider before this, which I cannot remember. I think it was Fies, actually, now I think about it. Um, and Kabuto, that would be an interesting, like, duology, or what is it? Dynamic, I guess, for that, you know. But yeah. Um, so, yeah, so he then has a talk with Soji about it, and um, basically, Soji came to the conclusion that Arata was told to, or that he is the bee now, and he was told to defeat Kabuto and everything. And yeah, he figured that that was what the party was about, but also we saw him see Arata, um, I think, de-transform from the bee in the last episode. So yeah, so he already knew that, and then he came to the conclusion that that's what the party was about. But then also, yeah, he figured that they would tell him that he needs to defeat Kabuto, just because, well, it's Zect. Like, anyone could tell that. But yeah, I should also say we see Arata's father at the beginning as well. Um, I think after, yeah, after the conversation with So, and his father basically says that uh, he's glad that Arata has friends like Soji, and I think Hiyori as well, and and all that, and he hopes that he'll continue to treat him well. And Soji says, yeah, basically, just, I think, kind of dismissively, but there's a reason for that. So then after that, I need to mention that because of what's going to happen later on. After that, we see Arata join the Shadow Troopers in fighting a new set of worms, and um, the troopers are somewhat losing, but then well, actually, no, they're holding them off, but then Arata transforms into the bee and starts fighting the main one when its goons come out and start fighting the troopers. He puts Shun in charge of the troopers while he deals with the worm. And yeah, and while that's happening, he does the cast off, but cannot engage in the clock up before the worm goes into its clock up as well, or its clock up first, and bats him away basically. But who shows up but Soji in his Kamen Rider Kabuto form, and uses the clock up to defeat, and Rider Kick powers to defeat the worm, or all of the worms and everything. But yeah, Arata goes into clock up as well because he's wondering who was the one to do that, and he sees Soji doing it. So yeah, and they start fighting in clock up after the troopers see Kabuto after the clock up wears down or winds down, and yeah, so they start fighting, but then they have a conversation, and Soji basically tells him that he doesn't consider him a friend, because in his grandmother's words, friendship is the naive form of camaraderie. I, I, okay. I figure, when because camaraderie, that comes from the word comrade, which is basically the closest equivalence we have in English to the word nakama. So I'm assuming he probably said something in Japanese. I'd need to listen to the actual dialogue as opposed to reading the translation. But I'm assuming he probably said something in Japanese that was probably nakama, which, if you're not familiar, it's a thing within Japanese that means something closer than comrade. Basically, just means someone who's very, very close to you, that is your friend, and but is also a very special person to you. Not like you're in love with them or you're in a romantic relationship kind of thing, but like, just very, very close friends, basically. And yeah, but there's no like fully direct English equivalent to it. So, but yeah, but it is comrade is the closest word we have in English to it, which is also a Russian word though. But I don't know. But yeah, and basically he angers Arata enough, or maybe not angers, but like gets him worked up enough to the point where he charges the sting or the rider's sting and punches him in the shoulder with it. Soji de-transforms and says, I think he says something about how amusing he is. Then tells him that about how they're gonna do the party and what food he should bring and whatever. But yeah, um, and Soji starts walking away. To which I have to just like, bro, like, come on, dude, you're not doing too well at keeping your identity secret from Zect. But whatever. I guess since they didn't see his face or something, I don't know. But they still heard his voice. I don't know, because like, Shun like should be able to connect the dots on who he is. But anyways, yeah. So Soji just starts walking away, but he also has what looks like a big like welt forming or just a bruise on his shoulder. Because I think he de-transformed before it hit him, or like right before or something, or he was left as he was I don't know, something like that. The troopers start like firing towards Soji, but then Arata steps in the way, taking the bullets and everything. Luckily, they don't hurt him because of the rider armor on him. But yeah, and then Shun says, "What are you doing? Why are you letting him get away?" And so Soji takes off, or not Soji, Arata takes off the not only the Zector but also the mount or the wrist mount that's there, and throws it on the ground, and obviously he's de-transformed. And he basically says, basically that he has different priorities, so he's not going to be uh, the B anymore. And yeah, so we get that, and then we get his father. Yep, and I guess this was supposed to be revealed the last episode, but I'm gonna be completely honest. The lighting was so shit in the scene where I guess it was revealed, and then unless if this was revealed in a previous episode, but I cannot remember for the life of me. Um, that like I couldn't really tell the guy's face, as it doesn't help that the show was shot in like 480p, so and the YouTube uploads are not only like seemingly broadcast masters, maybe upscaled at 720p, but like YouTube compression doesn't help with it, so it looks lower resolution than it should. I don't know. It's really dumb. They look like compressed DVD masters, slightly raised to 720p, or maybe even shot at 720p. I don't know. And just as a result of being uploaded to YouTube, compressed really badly. So yeah, but Arata's father is one of the very tip top higher ups of Zect, and when the other guy comes in the room and tells him that Arata is no longer the B, Arata's father says it's no matter, and that something about someone else also coming in and making things interesting or whatever. And we see on a bridge as Soji is driving along on his bike, this a little girl and an older guy that are standing right next to each other, and but also a CGI mechanical firefly, or not firefly. What is it called? Dragonfly. I had to look on the wiki for the character. So yeah, just go to his power set and see that it's a dragonfly is the thing. I don't know why I couldn't remember that for the life of me, but whatever. And it lands on his finger as he holds up his hand with his pointer finger out. And we're basically left off on that. Also, I forgot to mention this at the beginning of the episode. So, Soji didn't defeat those two worms from the previous episode. That was actually left off for this one. And he uses his bike transformed into the three-wheeler with the staghorn attachment to defeat one of them. And then the other... Actually, no. He doesn't defeat both of them as far as I can tell. Actually, that one might have come into play later in the episode now that I think about it. But yeah, he defeats one of them by heading it off and then doing a rider kick on it. To which it isn't a roundhouse kick this time. I think he jumps and does a kick, but it's not a normal rider kick. But yeah. So I just wanted to cover all that. So yeah, pretty decent episode. I'm surprised they didn't do certain things that I was kind of expecting them to do as they happened. Soji also basically just admitting that he doesn't see other people as friends. Like, it seems like the only person he cares about is his little sister, which is fine, but like, and him being like intentionally closed off and everything, it seems, at the very least to me. Just because it's like, I guess, advice that his grandma gave him. I don't know. So yeah. So I don't really know. And Arata giving up Zebi really quickly over the course of this episode, just because he's conflicted over having to take out Soji, is really, I don't know. I guess it makes sense, but at the same time, It's like Soji kind of treats him like garbage at times, so I don't see why he considers him a friend. A coworker, sure. A neighbor, sure. Like, I don't think he should treat Soji like he's like the scum of the earth, but at the same time, it's like, I don't see why he sees Soji as a friend. Really? You know? It's really dumb. Because, like, yeah, Soji kind of treats him like shit, I'm not going to lie, and then, I don't know. And in this episode, he intentionally angered him to get him to, like, try and take him out and everything. You know? It's just really kind of dumb. But, yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about that one. So, yeah. And in fact, I was actually I was thinking with the last bit of what Soji was doing when he came in to defeat the worms. I thought he was just gonna get away and let Arata have all the credit, but nope. But yeah. So yeah, I really don't have much else to say. Just decent episode. Just kind of gets the story moving along and everything. Seems like a little bit of things are missing from this one. But yeah. So, yeah, I really don't have much else to say on this one. So, oh yeah, there was also the thing of, right, I forgot about this. When Soji tells, why do I keep forgetting her fucking name? I am just really bad with names when talking about these shows, the way that I am, I guess. Hiyori. I don't know why I keep forgetting shit inconsistently. Hiyori, he tells her about the party. She tells him that, or she asks him if the belt that she saw in the previous episode was really his or Arata's, and he asks what if it is his, and she says if it is his, I'll have to, I might hate him for, or yeah, I might have to hate him or something like that. And it's just like, God, they're definitely setting up something with her. But yeah, and he also like compliments her on how good her art is, and I'll say it is decent. But she doesn't really take that compliment or anything, and even tries to tell her in regards to the accident in Shibuya that happened 6 years prior, I believe, if I remember right. They were both trapped in like the rubble from the destroyed building, but they both had hope, and he likens it to a flower, and she kind of takes him too literally. Um, but he does explain that the flower was hope. If they didn't have hope, they wouldn't have gotten out of that situation, basically. Um, and I do like that. I do like that we are getting a reminder of the version of Shibuya that is destroyed in this universe. It's definitely nice. I will say that it is nice. So yeah, we actually get another reminder of that when Arata is sitting on the other side of the fence, uh, right next to where the ruined Shibuya is. Which I'm actually kind of surprised that in the 6 years since, they haven't tried repairing that shit yet, like clearing it and repairing it. I would think would be maybe the thing, because it seems like the destruction of Shibuya, would be 9/11, but worse, for the people of Tokyo. Um, and just knowing what happened with 9/11 over here, and the fact that we have a One World Trade Center to replace the two that were fallen, as well as the 9/11 Memorial, which I have visited, back during my senior trip 12 years ago. And I wouldn't mind visiting again in the near future, when I can, if I can get down to New York City. Um, yeah, it's just one of those things where it's just uh, a good thing to have a reminder of this. I am kind of surprised though that like things seem like they're kind of normal in this version of Tokyo. It kind of seemed like to me that like maybe the police would have more armor or something like that, or something would be done. But granted, there is Zect, so I guess that is it. Which technically that's a paramilitary force. So yeah, and it would make sense why they have the Master Rider project. But yeah, yeah. So that's basically it for I think all I need to or I wanted to say about this episode. Uh, like I said, decent episode. Just keeps the storyline moving, introduces some things new. Um, kind of resolves some things from the previous episodes. But yeah, or the previous two episodes. But yeah, um, so we'll see how things go in the next 5 episodes on the next podcast episode. Again, that's probably going to be every like 2 to 3 weeks. So yeah, because of how much. So Toei's basically gotten to where they're uploading 2 episodes a week. And Agito is Tuesdays at 9 p.m. for some reason, Eastern Standard Time, whereas Kabuto is 9 a.m. on Thursdays, Eastern Standard Time. I don't know why. I really don't know why. But that's just how they're choosing to do it. But yeah, so guys, really not much else to say on this one. So, links to the description on my shit. Subscribe if you want. And I'll see you guys in the next one.